Chapter 7. The Hand of Moses and Restoration the Second Time. The God who reveals the end from the beginning does not only speak through the mouths of prophets, he speaks through the bodies of his servants. At the burning bush, before Moses ever stood before Pharaoh, before a single plague descended on Egypt, God gave Moses 3 physical signs. 3 enacted prophecies whose meaning stretched far beyond the deliverance of Israel from Pharaoh. They were blueprints of the entire redemptive arc, compressed into the acts of one man's hands and a wooden rod, written not in ink, but in flesh and transformation. The most mysterious of these signs, the one that most directly illuminates the prophetic timeline of this book, is the sign of the leprous hand. 2 turnings, 2 withdrawals from the bosom, 2 completely different outcomes, and between the first withdrawal and the second, the entire redemptive history of the world is contained. At the burning bush, God gave Moses 3 signs to confirm his commission and to authenticate Moses before the people of Israel. Most readers treat these signs as mere credentials, proof of Moses' authority before a skeptical audience. And they were that, but they were also something far larger. The first sign, the rod cast down and becoming a serpent, then picked up and restored to a rod. The second sign, the hand placed into the bosom, withdrawn as white with leprosy, placed back in, withdrawn again as restored flesh. The third sign, the water poured on dry ground and becoming blood. Each of these signs contains a complete prophetic statement about the redemptive arc. The rod pictures Christ, cast down, made a curse, raised up in authority. The leprous hand pictures the 2 dispersions and the 2 turnings of the gospel. The water becoming blood pictures the covenant sealed in blood covering the earth. We will focus on the most compressed and most staggering of the 3, the sign of the leprous hand. Because what God packed into 2 simple movements of a man's arm contains the entire prophetic calendar of the restoration the second time. The first sign set the pattern for everything that followed. God asked Moses, "What is that in your hand?" Moses answered, "A rod." God said, "Cast it on the ground." Moses cast it down, and it became a serpent. Moses fled from it. Then God commanded him to take it back up by the tail, and when he did, it became a rod again in his hand. What was cast down was raised. What became a curse was restored to an instrument of authority. The prophetic meaning is unmistakable. Jesus, the rod of God, was cast down. He was made to be sin. He became, in the eyes of the world and in the sight of the law, a curse hung on a tree. Moses fled from the serpent because no man can approach what the law condemns. But God raised him up again, and in his raised hand, the rod of his authority is restored, mightier than anything the enemy brought against him. Just as Moses later lifted up the bronze serpent in the wilderness, so that all who looked upon it would live, Jesus declared, "And I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all peoples to myself." The rod became a serpent so it could become a rod again. But now it is the rod that rules the nations. Cast down, cursed, raised, ruling. The entire arc of the gospel in a single sign. Of all the prophetic acts at the burning bush, the sign of the leprous hand is the most compressed, the most strange, and, when the full weight of its meaning is understood, the most staggering. God tells Moses to put his hand in his bosom. Moses withdraws it, and it is white, leprous, diseased. God tells him to put it back in. Moses obeys. He withdraws it again, and it is restored, whole, the same color as his other flesh. 2 turnings, 2 withdrawals, 2 completely different outcomes, the same hand, the same bosom, the same motion. And between the first withdrawal and the second, the entire redemptive history of the world is contained. Notice what the text says when the hand comes out restored. It was restored like his other flesh, not transformed into something new, not replaced with different flesh, restored to what it always was. This is the prophetic signature of preservation through continuity. The hand that goes in leprous is the same hand that comes out restored. The identity does not change between the first withdrawal and the second. The appearance changes, the condition changes, but the hand, the people, the covenant, the genetic continuity is the same hand, always was, always will be. Moses' hand, by implication, was brown, the natural complexion of a Hebrew shepherd in the ancient Near East. When the hand comes out of the bosom the first time, it is white with leprosy. The natural flesh has been overtaken by a whitening disease. Leprosy in Scripture is never merely a physical condition. It is the sign of separation, of uncleanness, of being cut off from the community. The leper cried, "Unclean, unclean," and was excluded from the camp. The first withdrawal of the hand prophetically pictures what happened to Christ at his first coming. He came to his own people, born of the tribe of Judah, raised in the synagogues of Israel, and his own did not receive him. He was treated as a leper among his own, despised and rejected by men. Put outside the camp, outside the city walls, executed on a Roman cross beyond the gates of Jerusalem. The consequence of Israel's rejection of Christ was the turning of the gospel outward. As Paul wrote, blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. The leprous period, the period of the white hand, the period of Israel's partial blindness and the Gentile church's ascendancy. The dispensation of grace, 2,000 years of the gospel going primarily to Japheth, to the predominantly European peoples of the West. The leprous hand is white, and for 2,000 years, the hand of the covenant has been extended predominantly through the white Gentile world, through Rome, through the Protestant Reformation, through European and American missionary movements. This is not an accident. It is the prophesied condition of the hand during the dispensation of grace. The leprosy was not the destination, it was the sign, and signs, by their nature, point beyond themselves to something coming. God does not leave the hand in the bosom permanently. He says, "Put your hand in your bosom again," and Moses obeys. And when the hand comes out the second time, the leprosy is gone. The flesh is restored, the same color as his other flesh, whole, healed, natural. The hand that went in leprous comes out restored. And here is where the sign of the leprous hand connects directly to the great prophecy that is the backbone of this entire book. Listen to the opening words of Isaiah 11, verse 11. "The Lord shall set his hand again, the second time, to recover the remnant of his people from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros and Cush, from Elam and Shinar, from Hamath and the islands of the sea." The second time. The first time, the hand came out leprous. The gospel went to the Gentiles. Israel was scattered. The dispensation of grace operated through the white Gentile world. The hand was out. The second time, the hand is put back in and it comes out restored. The natural flesh is returned. And notice what nations are named in Isaiah 11:11, the peoples who are gathered when the hand comes out the second time. From Egypt, from Pathros and Cush, from the islands of the sea. These are the dark-complexioned nations of Africa and the African diaspora, the peoples of the Judah coast and the transatlantic passage, who are the restored flesh of the hand. Isaiah 11:11 is the fulfilled meaning of Exodus 4:7. The enacted prophecy at the burning bush was always pointing to this moment. The hand goes in leprous, the hand comes out restored. This is the second time. The prophetic imagery of the leprous hand does not stand alone. A parallel enacted prophecy occurs in Numbers 12, and its connection to the Isaiah 11 second-time regathering is equally direct. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman he had married. They said, "Has God only spoken through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?" And the cloud departed from the tabernacle, and Miriam became leprous, as white as snow. She was shut out of the camp for 7 days. And the people of Israel did not journey until Miriam was brought in again. Now hear the prophetic meaning of this enacted drama. Moses is a type of Christ, established throughout the New Testament. Everything that happens around Moses carries prophetic freight about the Christ who was to come. Moses' marriage to the Ethiopian woman is a prophecy of Christ's union with the Gentiles. The Ethiopian wife represents the nations, those who were afar off, those outside the covenant, those whom Israel never expected to be brought near. Miriam's opposition to that marriage, and her subsequent leprosy, prophetically pictures what happened to the Jewish nation when it rejected Jesus and his mission to the Gentiles. Israel said, "God speaks through us alone. We do not accept this union with outsiders." And in consequence, just as Miriam was struck with leprosy and sent out of the camp, Israel was scattered among the nations. Her identity turned unrecognizable to herself. Her flesh whitened by the dispersion into the European and Gentile world during 2,000 years of the leprous hand. But Miriam's exile was not permanent. At the appointed time, after the 7 days, after the full season of discipline was complete, Miriam's flesh was healed, and she was brought back into the camp. And critically, the people did not journey until Miriam was brought in. The full completion of the reconciliation regathering, the journey into the millennial reign, waits on the restoration of Israel. The people cannot journey until Miriam is brought in again. We are living at this juncture now. Miriam's flesh is starting to be restored. The hand is going back into the bosom. The second time is beginning. Chapter 7 has given us the most compressed prophetic blueprint in all of Scripture. The sign of the leprous hand at the burning bush, mapping the entire 2,000-year arc of the gospel onto two simple movements of Moses' arm. The hand goes into the bosom and comes out leprous. The white hand, the Gentile age, the dispensation of grace, Israel scattered and blind in part. The gospel carried primarily through Japheth's peoples. The hand goes in again and comes out restored, the natural flesh. The peoples of Cush and Egypt and the islands of the sea, the African diaspora gathered, the restored hand of the covenant. Isaiah 11:11 is the fulfilled meaning of Exodus 4:7. The enacted prophecy at the burning bush was always pointing to this moment, and Miriam's exile was always pointing to Miriam's return. We are living at this juncture. The second time has begun. The hand is going back in. The restored flesh is coming out. And the people will not journey until Miriam is brought in again. One nation under God has traced the entire arc, from the division of 930 BC, through two dispersions, through the banner nation, through the dispensational framework, to this moment at the burning bush, where God compressed it all into the movement of a man's hand. One seed, two families, two turnings of the hand, one restoration, one shepherd, one nation under God. The recognition is coming. The journey is not over. The hand goes in leprous. The hand comes out restored. This is the second time.